Hello, I'm Nathaniel Smith, and today I'm going to do another book review. But instead of just one book, I'm going to review two. So the first one's Alice in Wonderland. Actually, it's titled Alice's Adventures in Wonderland, but then they shortened it. And then its sequel, which is, of course, there it is, Through the Looking Glass. If you can read that. And what Alice found there. So, how does one review the brilliance of Alice in Wonderland Through the Looking Glass? It's brilliant, and the imagery it gives is so memorable, like following the white rabbit, or the blue caterpillar smoking that hookah. But it's hard to really describe it unless you've read it already, which you actually should have. Like, why wouldn't you read these books? They're awesome and insane. There's nothing greater than reading a book full of insanity, nonsense, and imagery on top of imagery on top of imagery of awesomeisms and crazy rhymes that I just love. Like, and it's got such beautiful artwork, like that there, Through the Looking Glass. Alice in Wonderland, of course, has classic scenes like, there's old Father William there. Anyways, I mean, it's just, such good books, both of them. Here, I know what I could do. Instead of just trying to review it, which is a bit difficult, I'll read a bit of it. Chapter 7. Well, I'm just going to read part of it. A mad tea party. There was a table set out under a tree in front of the house, and the March Hare and the Hatter were having tea at it. A dormouse was sitting between them, fast asleep, and the other two were using it as a cushion, resting their elbows on it and taking over its head. Very uncomfortable for the dormouse, thought Alice, only as it's asleep I suppose it doesn't mind. The table was a large one, but the three were all crowded together at one corner of it. "No room! No room!" they cried out when they saw Alice coming. "There's plenty of room," said Alice indignantly, and she sat down in a large armchair at one end of the table. "Have some wine?" the March Hare said in an encouraging tone. Alice looked all around the table, but there was nothing of it but tea. "I don't see any wine," she remarked. "There isn't any," said the March Hare. "Then it was very civil. Then it wasn't very civil of you to offer it," said Alice angrily. "It wasn't very civil of you to sit down without being invited," said the March Hare. I didn't know it was your table," said Alice. "It's laid for a great many more than 3. Your hair wants cutting," said the Hatter. He had been looking at Alice for some time with great curiosity, and this was his first speech. "You should learn not to make personal remarks," Alice said with some severity. "It's very rude." The Hatter opened his eyes very wide on hearing this, but all he said was, "Why is a raven like a writing desk?" "Come, we shall have some fun now," thought Alice. "I'm glad we've begun asking riddles. I believe I can guess that," she asked aloud. "Do you mean that you think you can find out the answer to it?" said the March Hare. "Exactly so," said Alice. "Then you should say what you mean," said the March Hare went on. "I do," Alice hastily replied. At least I mean what I say. That's the same thing, you know." "Not the same thing a bit," said the Hatter. "Why, you might as well say that I see what I eat is the same thing as I eat what I see." "You might just as well say," added the March Hare, "that I like what I get is the same thing as I get what I like." "You might just as well say," added the Dormouse, which seemed to be talking in its sleep, "that I breathe when I sleep is the same thing as I sleep when I breathe." "It is the same thing with you," said the Hatter. This is just an idea of how it rolls. And let me just read one of my favorite poems from both books. "'Twas brillig and the slithy toves did gyre and gimble in the wabe. All mimsy were the borough groves, and the mom rats out grabe. Beware the Jabberwock, my son, the jaws that bite, the claws that catch. Beware the Jubjub bird, and shun the frumious Bandersnatch. He took his vorpal sword in hand, long time the maxim foe he sought. So he rested by the tum-tum tree and stood awhile in thought. And as in uffish thought he stood, the Jabberwock with eyes of flame came whiffling through the tulgey wood, and burbled as it came. 1, 2, 1, 2, and through the vorpal blade went snicker-snack. He left it dead, and with its head he went galumping back. And hast thou slain the Jabberwock? Come to my arms, my beamish boy, oh frabjous colo cole, he chortled in his joy. 'Twas brillig and the slithy toves, the gowan gimble and the wave, all mimsy were the burgroves, and the momraths outgrabe. So, yeah. So, if you love a book that's totally focused on imagination, and does some of the really craziest, trippiest imagery you can imagine, that caused many people to think Lewis Carroll was on drugs, I highly suggest you read Alice's Adventures in Wonderland through the Looking Glass. So, yeah.